Yes, folks, if you live in the UK, the thought police are coming after you. But first, I want to talk about YouTube for a moment and how they are coming after you. Now, in the last quarter from July to September 2019, they deleted over 516 million comments. That's an increase of about 210% on the same period in 2018. Now, in the same period in 2019, they deleted over 8 million videos, an increase of about 11% on 2018 during the same period. And they delivered over 3 million channels in the same period in 2019, an increase of about 98% on the same period in 2018. Now, how can anyone interpret those numbers and say we have free speech? And how can anyone navigate their community guidelines and be able to speak honestly, be able to challenge things when they are too afraid to do so? Now, I'll start this off today with a few clips from a debate between Douglas Murray and Sylvana Simons, and then I'll follow up with the UK story.
But for some reason we have fallen, and we can get into why perhaps, into this very strange fragmented view of society which fragments along these very specific lines. And I'm going to finish because I'm conscious of the clock, but I just wanted to finish by saying this. What if all of this isn't making things better? What if it isn't erasing these differences? What if it isn't saying to people you can be whatever you want to be, but it's actually making these differences accentuated? It's playing off races against each other, it's playing off the sexes against each other, it's playing off sexual minorities against majorities. What if we're not doing something that's making things better, but just doing something that's making it an awful lot worse?
Yes, it's clearly making things a lot worse. We're now being divided up into tribes. Anyway, now to the next clip.
So I beg to differ that so-called political correctness or wokeness results in less free speech. I can safely say from my own personal experience that it seems to me that more can be said by some rather than as well as less by others in the current political climate, at least in the Netherlands. Right-wing discourse is on the rise in my home country, and on a daily basis people say the harshest things about non-binary people, women, people of color, Muslims, refugees, people with disabilities, undocumented people, basically everybody that isn't a white, male, able-bodied of a certain age.
Yeah, do you see what she's just done there? She has pitted several groups of people against older white men. And that is somehow okay in this modern woke world. Anyway, now to the next clip.
Sorry, there is a more important thing, if I may say so,
sure,
which is that actually this one is a very niche bit of a thing. Whether a pop star thinks they're non-binary or genderqueer or whatever, is not that significant. Now, there is one that's very significant, which we're all tripping over now, which is the trans one. And you mentioned the thing about the phobia there. There is a real problem in our societies on this one, because actually in the media, people are petrified now of writing about this issue. But outside there in the country, as you can see from a new poll that's about to come out tomorrow, the general public are deeply concerned about being dismissed as transphobes when you're talking about how you deal with children.
Yes, exactly. Now, how can people solve problems when they can't even speak?
That isn't a small concern. It's not just about pronouns. It's a legitimate concern of the general public about the well-being of children. I'm bothered when people make assertions which we haven't litigated in public yet. And on a whole set of issues at the moment, look, the way I see it is, I'm sure you're all people who've seen sheepdogs in operation, but if you see a sheepdog trying to get a herd of sheep. It doesn't need to go and force them into a corner. It goes and it not even nips, but pretends to nip around the edges, and that way you can make everyone move like this. There is a real and significant risk in our society with the free press at the moment that people coming and making very slight nips around the edges make the whole herd move in another direction. That is exactly what's happened with this.
What are you worried about will be the end result?
I'm worried that we tell little lies and we get used to little lies and then we tell bigger ones. I think it's a lie to pretend that biology doesn't matter.
Exactly. Anyway, now to the UK story.
My name is Harry Miller. I'm the...
Anyway, hat tip to African Violet for this one. And you can see this guy here is a former police officer.
Chief Executive Officer of Fair Cop, and I'm currently fighting Humberside Police and the College of Police in a judicial review in November 1919. In January, I got a telephone call from my managing director. I own a small business at the Port of Birmingham. And he said that a police officer had turned up at work in response to a complaint from a third party in London who had rung up Humberside saying that they were in fear for the transgender people in my workplace on account of the fact that I tweeted gender-critical stuff on Twitter. I was simply making statements such as, I do not believe that trans women are women. Asking questions like, if a person identifies as trans and they commit a rape, which column does that go in? Does it go in the male or the female column?
Yeah, a perfectly legitimate question.
Perfectly reasonable questions as far as I'm concerned. However, simply asking those questions, Humberside have taken the position that they are hateful and are designed to cause distress to the trans community. I asked PC Gull, okay, first and foremost, have I committed a crime? And PC Gull said, oh no, no question, you have not committed a crime. I said, so why are you ringing me then? And he said, I need to check your thinking. And I said, whoa, hold on a minute. So you're a police officer and you're ringing me to check my thinking? And he said, yes. And I said, have you any idea what that makes you? And he said, no. I said, well, that makes you the thought police. Now,
yeah, the thought police for sure.
What we've discovered is that PC Gull has denied this aspect of the conversation, but it's irrelevant because we found a standing order from Humberside Police that requires Humberside Police to check people's belief systems.
Wow, checking people's belief systems. Whew.
That's what it says, to challenge and check people's belief systems. So irrespective of the misrepresentation by PC Gull, it's irrelevant. It's in their standing orders to check people's thinking. The reason that we went to court was because I discovered that, one, I'd been defamed without any evidence, and two, that this hate incident was now a fixed incident in the records of Humberside Police.
Yeah, I'll just read that. Where any person, including police personnel, reports a hate incident which would not be the primary responsibility of another agency, it must be recorded regardless of whether or not they are the victim, and irrespective of whether there is any evidence to identify the hate element. Irrespective of whether there is any evidence to identify the hate element. Now that is so wrong.
That's the thing about a hate incident, is that the College of Police guidelines say no evidence is required. None. No evidence at all. So if a third party perceives it as being hateful, it's hateful. Wow. That's it. And this is where it gets super scary, because there's no possible recourse. There's no mitigation. There is nothing that you can say to expunge the hate element of an incident. Now, when I got through the crime report, or the incident report, what is telling is that it doesn't say instant report at the top of it. It says crime report. In big letters, it says crime report. And then just below it, it says offence, trans hate speech. Much further down, it says category, crime, non-crime. Well, crime, non-crime has got to be the best example of Orwellian doublespeak that I've ever heard. But if you're an employer, potential employer, and you do an enhanced DBS check, I think what you're going to see is a crime report. You're going to see the word offence. You're going to see the words hate. And I think you're never going to even read that crime, non-crime thing before you wrap it up and throw it in the bin. What's happened here is the College of Policing and the police forces in England and Wales have adopted guidance as if it were law. And when you ask for the underpinning law to their guidance, they simply give you the guidance because they conflate law with guidance. We're saying that's not right. In particular, the paragraphs that require no evidence. The third-party reporting, the perception-based reporting that does not require any evidence whatsoever, that bit has to go. I mean, personally, I would like it all to be looked at, but that's the bit that we are saying this cannot stand in a free and democratic society that is based upon the rule of law. You cannot have a situation where the police are not required to have evidence before they record you as having committed a hate incident. That cannot stand.
Yes, folks, that stuff cannot stand. That is so wrong on so many levels. Now, at this stage, I don't think there has been a ruling on the case, or at least I couldn't find anything. Now, as for the Murray debate, I have posted a link to it in the description below.